So this video is just to remind you how to analyze a map, especially one that you've created with multiple layers. So this is a map of the Parkdale High Park ward. It's a larger area than the neighborhood which I lived in. The neighborhood I lived in is Bloor West Runnymede area, and it's around this area. This is the small part of this larger ward. So what I find interesting is that one of the layers I used are these purple dots. And if you notice, they're kind of actually in different neighborhoods. So every ward has several dots because these are kind of the different neighborhoods within the larger ward. Like we talked about, Thorncliffe is a neighborhood that's right next door to Flemington, which is very close by to Sunnybrook, and Bridle Path neighborhood, which is much wealthier. So even though it's the same ward, neighborhoods can have very different characteristics. So in this case, if I'm looking at my data, I can click on this purple dot here, and it tells me it's the Lambton Baby Point neighborhood, which is very similar to Bloor West Village neighborhood. It's an alternative name for it. And I can see the homicides that have happened. There's very few of them that have happened. The average household income for this particular neighborhood is very high, $214,000. This is a particularly rich part of the neighborhood. Whereas if we go to South Parkdale, which is what I talked about in contrast, still part of the same ward, way down here though, you'll see that if I click on that purple dot, here we go, here's South Parkdale. We see a much different household income is $67,000 for 2022 estimate, and homicides, there has been one in 2016. But if we compare other types of crime, for example, breaking and entering are these dots here. If I wanted to know that, I could look at the legend. Remember, this is the legend button, and I can see that breaking and entering is the blue dot. Another thing I can do is if I want to see the data more clearly, I can actually undo the check marks, and then now I'm only seeing breaking and entering because all the other layers have been removed for me to really analyze this carefully. And I can see that if I zoom into my neighborhood that I grew up in, there's much fewer dots. Now this could be based on density, but there's less instances of breaking and entering as opposed to over here. If we start to get into South Parkdale, there's much more, there's many more examples of breaking and entering, okay? So as a reminder too, if you want to have layers and see them more clearly, you can put your layers back on. Okay, this particular one, if you want to know what it means, you can click on it and show item details, and it tells you what this data was. So this one in particular was breaking and entering, auto theft, robbery, and theft overall. So it has many different types of occurrences, okay? So again, you'd have to click on a particular instance. This was from motor vehicles, okay? Another example that's interesting is when you're choosing layers, you can also change the transparency. So one of the reasons I'm able to see these purple dots more clearly, even though I have other dots here, is because of the transparency button. So if I want to make the color lighter, I can go to any of the layers, click on these three dots, go to transparency, and if I want to make it more lighter, I go to more transparent. You can barely see the purple dots. If I want them to be the actual color they're supposed to be, it would be there. In this case, I made them a little bit lighter so I could still see those blue dots, which are actually quite hard to see right now. So if I want to make the blue dots more visible, I could increase their opaqueness, and then they should be more clear. Oh, there we go. Then now they're more clear. I had to get rid of that one. So you have to play around with your layers, okay? Don't forget, it's really important to have the city ward layers so you can see the big wards, and your neighborhood might be slightly different. in size, so you can always zoom in on your story map to actually show your neighborhood area. And then also you want to show in your story map what is the larger ward area, even though you're focusing on a smaller part. Okay.